Part 5 of Housewife Turn to Work Affair. All other parts down below. Since it appears to have been a month, I figured I'd provide an update. Since then, I've been trying to distance myself and make it clear that I don't belong in her life if he is. It hasn't been easy going. To organize her belongings, my spouse took a leave of absence from her job. All communication and interaction has been limited to our son. In order to give her more time with our son, we have also redesigned our schedule. Less time spent at the on the other hand. She lives alone, so it's been difficult to learn about things, but there are currently only 1 or 2 days every week. Perhaps they could be together. They can text, of course, but she's been aware of the need to avoid getting too close to my son because she knows what I'll do. Having said that, our kid began preschool last week, and we both desired to be present on his first day. There was just the husband and wife team. In actuality, it's still impossible to detect the issues. It was also her birthday. I gave her nothing at all. However, I assisted my son in making her something. Then something happened last week. She was in a car accident on Thursday night while traveling to a friend's house for supper in honor of her birthday. She was struck on the passenger side, and although the damage was minimal, she appeared to be hurt. She says she wasn't talking on the phone at the moment. Cell records verify, and there is a well-known blind spot at the crossroads where she was struck. Due to a line of trucks blocking the road, I was unable to see another automobile approaching. In any case, she left unharmed physically, but she's been a complete wreck mentally. She is aware of her lack of concentration, that she wasn't paying attention. She started to consider the possible outcomes if our son had been there in the vehicle. She appeared to be very affected by it. Her buddy and her mother arrived at the scene of the collision before me. I also learned that she had called the aunt, who wanted to check in on his kids for the night in order to see whether she was okay. I had a son for the night. He was told to stay away, though, because it would have been horrible with her friend and mother there. She told them both in her devastated state that she had to tell him and that she had to terminate it. She told him when he came over to his place the following night with the hopes of getting his booty call on at this point. She said that she had dumped him at this time. He informed her he was preparing to quit, and she questioned if it made him selfish. She said that it did, adding that she had chosen to put her son and herself first and that she would like to take another month off to deal with this and avoid talking to him for the time being. I don't believe she has a backup plan, and for her planned return date. Although she acknowledges that it's what she must do, particularly for her kid, she still doesn't feel quite comfortable doing it. Furthermore, she hasn't expressed any want to rejoin the marriage, so I can't ask for the typical things I would. And that's the thing that's bothering me the most at the moment. She is attempting to end the affair and is presently going through the withdrawal phase, as if she had some kind of enlightenment. She's also acting in her son's best interests. However, I have a selfish side. I wish she was acting on her desire to be with me and the fact that the affair was bad. I can't help but feel that because she isn't doing this entirely on her own initiative, there will eventually be bitterness and residual emotions. Naturally, I wish I was the cause. My ego won't just let it go, even though I'll do everything it takes to put an end to it. Is having those feelings incorrect? And if she has a good support network in place and is genuinely attempting to stop, what can I do to assist her with the withdrawal symptoms? I've already done everything I could to demonstrate her the sort of man I am and the kind of marriage I can offer her, but I've also been keeping my distance from her out of self-interest. Or should I simply let her be? I am aware of her areas of emphasis, and she started crying when I went to get my son a haircut because she was trying to get over her sadness. There's nothing worse than witnessing your spouse cry over someone else. She has struggled over the last few days, but she is making an effort to remain true to herself. I'm not precisely sure how she's doing. I should also mention that she finally told her aunt that she hasn't been doing what her therapist has been telling her to do. Hopefully, though, that will start to change now. I discover that as I distance myself, I might desire to establish new friends who also happen to be attractive in the other gender. My wife has also commented on the physical improvements I've made, including my workout regimen and wardrobe choices, at the same time. Despite this, I don't really take her compliments seriously. After all, even though the is a piece of junk, she finds him appealing. So I wonder what her tastes are. Making friends with people of the other gender would ultimately increase my value in her eyes. That's why women are such strange animals. If only I had more time. Her breakup with him ended quickly, as I had predicted. She told me on Tuesday that he texts her and asks to come over. She claimed to have told him, "Have you forgotten our conversation from the other day?" However, by Wednesday, she had reverted to her old ways, following everyone else's lead and appearing miserable. It's funny, but I assumed she was acting on behalf of her son. We had yet another lengthy conversation about how she doesn't even refer to their connection as a relationship and doesn't even call him her boyfriend. What does he call you? I wondered. His partner. It's gay, she claimed. I informed her that we used to stroll around proudly when we were boyfriend and girlfriend. She said that it was because we were carrying out the task correctly. She started with, "I know there's no future and it's not going to last, but I have to do this on my own," before leaving for her therapy. I saw her the next day to drop my son off. How in the hell? It's similar like watching a train approach while standing on railroad tracks and realizing it won't move. At last, she acknowledged that they had gone on a few casual dates. She refused to provide the location. Later on, though, more on it. They were reunited because she had her way. Thus, friends and relatives are all furious with her once more. She ordered an NFL team shirt, and it arrived 2 days later. Even though I informed her we're not friends and I don't care, she was excited. I got a picture of it from her. I said something insensitive about how little and sheer it looked and how her partner would adore it even if he's not a big sports fan. The first loser fact. They will always be our squad, she replied. We were meant to visit the zoo on Sunday, 2 days later, but I turned it into a father-son outing instead. She gave up everything because she was so eager to leave. She was really stepping it up, calling someone names, accusing. However, she opened with her standard statement. This was the most recent deal breaker if you were hoping that we would reconcile. She had stated it 3 times before for unrelated reasons. She went there after that. I'm going to hire a private attorney. My divorce is being filed. I just replied, fine, at that point. Go ahead, I'm done. I'm done with this. My therapist has advised me to focus on improving myself and finding my true self. And I am doing just that. She was shocked and remained silent. I gave her the okay to start filing. I no longer find it to be relevant. I will not put up with this garbage any longer. I'm sick of it. We can resolve the matter and part ways if you get a lawyer and file. After that, I didn't hear from her again that afternoon. After I dropped him off that evening, all we spoke about was our son's day and what had happened. At the moment, her girlfriend was there merely to keep her company. She departed simultaneously with me. The following day, I was going to her girlfriend's house to watch football with her husband. We also have friendships, and she made the choice to come over with our kids so that he could spend the day playing and baking cupcakes with their daughter. She then pretended as if nothing had happened. I wanted to clarify, though, that I wasn't trying to be a jerk. You're not talking to me if you're talking to him. Story ends here. Once more, file if you intend to do so. I've come to terms with the fact that our marriage is finished and that a reconciliation is not possible. Despite appearing taken aback by what I had said, she stayed friendly until it was time to part. And that's been the situation. We're back to square one, but this time it's different since she got back together or something. I'm giving up. All that I can do is this. Before it's final, I know she has 3 more breakups in her. I am aware that it will occur before to the holidays. But at this moment, I just don't want to be near her. An excessive amount of annoyance and rage. And at this point, I'm starting to despise her. I also wish not to. I've done everything I can for my son, if nothing else. It's time to start planning some events and time just for me. It's time to let go and go on, to accomplish the things I've always wanted to do and meet some new people. And if she returns, that's great. If not, I've given it up. I have no power, and I'm hoping I can make it work. Funny story, too, after we left, her girlfriend told me a story about them and a few of their dates. She claimed that on occasions when it was time to go out to dinner, he would call and tell her to go over to his mother's place instead of wasting time because she had already prepared food. The second loser fact. We already knew he was a mommy's boy, I promise. And this one was called months ago by the STBXW, how he would revert to the tendencies in his family that bothered her. Not only was my spouse informing her friend of this, but she was also whining about sure. It's also very funny. It inspires me to work even harder on improving myself. In addition to improving myself, I want to demonstrate to her what she's giving up and that I am capable of preparing my own food. I have no idea what she's doing, but I'm laughing so hard that I'm also feeling a bit sorry for her because she's foolish enough to put herself through this. Okay, one more update. I learned a little later that she had visited Target and Home Depot with him and his mother on the zoo excursion I had mentioned. She's been calling him a mommy's boy for a while now, but she actually experienced it firsthand. As they conversed while riding in her minivan, she stated it felt as though she wasn't even there. And he was a little off when they went to check out, so he hurried over to help her unload her cart without thinking about my wife. She described it as a real eye-opener. I hadn't spoken to her much after that, other than regarding our son. Our 7th anniversary, or what should have been, was last weekend. We had a son together, and I was left to mope. She invited a few of her friends over for conversation and baking with their children. The next day, I learned that she had broken up with him once more. But this time it seemed to be different because she had just gotten into a heated argument with him in which he essentially labeled her insane and said that she needed time to heal because she was broken. The last little joke was that he was seen getting too familiar with a coworker who was essentially a younger, slimmer replica of his former partner. Nothing verified, but he has seriously sidestepped her questions when she has asked them. She has therefore been having some difficulty this week getting through the withdrawal stage. She says she's getting stronger and all this other bullshit every day, and there's been no evidence of her going back. He hasn't heard from her. She also has a note on her phone reminding her that it's all just a game and he doesn't really care, in case she feels the need. She hasn't indicated that she plans to rejoin the marriage. I suppose it's one step at a time. I'm leaving out a lot of other things since I'm running out of time and energy. That's all I've done thus far, yet I still need to improve, just in case. And keeping a watch, all she's done in the last week is try to occupy her time in order to help her get through this, which includes planning a ton of family-oriented activities. My wife's favorite time of year is almost here, the holidays. Although I acknowledge that, in her current state of mind, she is not my wife, she undoubtedly regards me as a friend. According to her, her closest friend, something the has been struggling with and which he vented to a coworker he was unaware I was in communication with. As she recovers, she actually doesn't think of me as a desirable substitute until she's done with it. However, following that, I have an opportunity to reintegrate her into the group, and we can proceed from there. The problem is that she has occasionally spoken to me or made remarks that were almost explicitly flirtatious rather than merely nice. Observing how I've been exercising and if I appear larger or more defined. Sent me a text while wearing a new outfit, both with and without shirts. Yes, it might just be cake eating, but she is aware that I really do want to move on. She'll get over her breakup, but she's also aware that this is something my therapist and I have been working on, so she knows I might not stick around. I've tried my hardest to satisfy her emotional demands, but I haven't received what I need. And why not give it a shot? That's what she did, after all. Nevertheless, I'm also juggling maintaining a respectable family life, particularly for my son, who I believe is simply too young to handle it. Having said that, he has told her on multiple occasions that he dislikes her place and wants to go home. He also claims, understandably, that she doesn't have enough toys. What then are your options? He is 4 years old. I believe I'm reaching the stage where I can post updates every week, hopefully becoming increasingly optimistic as we go. And I'm not sure why. There appears to be less unrest, and I hope that my experiences may enable others to recognize the wide range of possible outcomes for an affair, numerous details and approaches to managing them. The writing appears to stay the same, though, at the same moment. The progression and the data also aid in bringing this information to light. I also want to add how wonderful, encouraging, and useful this forum has been. In contrast to previous places I've been, I want to thank the members, the connections, and the capacity for patience. Let's get started. For the record, it appears that she has attempted to separate herself from the very successfully. Still doesn't seem to be interested in getting back into the marriage, so I can't be as demanding as I would like to be. However, progress is being made. She is staying away from work for the time being. We might see this through early December. She will then have to deal with the music. She is announcing to her supervisor and coworkers that this is it. That she became aware there is no tomorrow. She may still have feelings for him, in my opinion. But at this point, I'm at a loss on what to do. However, I believe he will handle the task for me. Every few days, he gets in touch with her, in an attempt to ignore him. However, he has asked his sister to attempt to speak on his behalf. However, he has made everything worse for himself. I brought up the fact that he was spotted mingling with a coworker. There is no proof of this association. However, he's been very guarded. And since then, they have fought a few times. The worst part, though, is that our close friend was the source of the information breach. He began questioning who had told my wife about the incident when she brought it up to him. She didn't give up, though. Since then, he has urged his entire staff to attempt and solve the problem. He's been trying to sneak in some inquiries because he's so concerned about who leaked. He's still not convinced, but he eventually faced our guy who is the leaker, and essentially made a threat to reveal to him what we don't know. He works at the same store as his girlfriend. That has therefore given him a whole new set of issues. Not only did it make him appear like a complete loser, but my wife also questioned why he was getting so defensive. If there are no issues with the other female employee as well, the friend in question has informed his manager. He works as a merchant for her, and the other man's HR department, as the approach to him may easily be interpreted as bullying or harassment. That's so continuous, and he gets worse looking with each text. Having said that, I've had to just let things unfold without saying anything. Allow it to finish dying naturally. It will be difficult to avoid doing things with her as the holidays get nearer, only due to the fact that our son's birthday is approaching. However, I'm still making an effort to put some distance between us and amusing myself in my spare time. I've changed up my exercise routine to give myself that extra push. We'll see how Halloween goes, but I know that in addition to boosting my still fairly low confidence, it's also helping me mentally prepare for when I start dating. Random chats with women have increased recently. However, my son is now interested in it and recently received his first actual candy case. After my last post 3 months ago, everything appeared to be going smoothly. We were having a conversation after my wife seemed to have ended the affair. Not too much, as I was exhausted. Then, shortly after Thanksgiving, I experienced the gut instinct once more. She unintentionally left her cell phone number in our son's luggage. After I managed to log on, I discovered that everything had stopped for about a week. However, they resumed their messaging shortly after. Between her family and me at that time, she was held responsible for her whereabouts. Therefore, their chances of meeting outside of work were only about 5%. However, the texting continued. At that time, while my wife was at work, I called her and confronted her. She still hasn't recommitted to the marriage, mind you, either at that time or today. She sobbed right then and there and declared that she would stop at nothing to keep me in her life. Not a spouse or a union, nevertheless. Later that day, I learned that she had confronted him in front of other workers, screaming and yelling at him to leave her alone because he had ruined her life. A few days later, she gave me the account passwords and changed her cell phone number. At that point, the yêus entered to intimidate a supplier of the supermarket where they work. In addition, the dealer is one of my close friends. A week later, he became involved in a heated verbal argument with an 80-year-old customer to the extent that the yêus had to be restrained. The man was a family friend as well. Finally, I called HR the day after she had changed her number to inform them of her actions. A week later, they returned to interview everyone but the yêus. Under emotional strain, he sent an email to his supervisors that same day asking for a transfer, which 2 days later, he rescinded. The holidays went smoothly, and it appears that she has moved on from the incident. I've made sporadic calls to her landline to confirm that she disconnects it at night. However, HR hasn't done anything and they continue to collaborate. I receive updates on the situation from a few acquaintances who work there. Additionally, a few individuals have informed me that despite his repeated attempts to approach her and strike up a conversation, she always turns away and doesn't accept no. She's had other individuals take her to her car as recently as 2 weeks ago so she can avoid him. But once more, they continue to collaborate. Since he doesn't do anything particularly noteworthy for a living, either HR is simply behind schedule, or she barely spoke on his behalf. I'm aware of your response. Why doesn't she just tell HR again if he continues to disturb her? Given that it is essentially a case of harassment in waiting. She is apathetic, to start. She has also expressed her desire to avoid being the one to terminate or transfer someone. But since the yêus would do that in a second, that is unacceptable and garbage. Second, she would eventually pay a price for continuing to communicate with him in one form or another. In actuality, her choices are still supported by her actions, as disoriented and perplexed as she claims to be. In my opinion, it's more about who she is and how she sees herself. I believe that she is still very much involved, if not emotionally attached. However, both our son and her head are telling her otherwise. Even though nothing has appeared on her cell phone, she is still guilty until and unless proven innocent. According to my therapist, the relationship is essentially over. They still don't know why it died when I exposed it, if not physically. In the last 4 months, my wife and he have broken up 5 times, and he simply won't let her be by herself. Nevertheless, she said something to him to encourage him to follow. Her goal is to overcome her addiction. She's given hundreds of reasons rather than a select few for staying or leaving. However, I believe that her pride and humiliation are what continue the issue. I just can't find any evidence that she's speaking with him. I shouldn't have to, though. She needs to show me that she's not. She has made an effort to win back my trust, but her actions have been more defensive and cover up her guilt than repentance and reconciliation. I've been forced to actually let go of the rope. We haven't actually seen each other for more than drop-offs and pickups during the last few weeks. And it's her mom's birthday, and she compliments me on my haircut while acting a little scared, wearing some jewelry that I gave her years ago and haven't seen in a long time, preparing dinner for me to take home once I pick up my son. She is still independent, though. She may be waiting for me to relocate because I know she doesn't want to live in my home again. I'm going to short sell it shortly. However, it is highly probable that she remains emotionally linked to him and is not drawn to me. It makes no difference at this time. And no longer in charge. My therapist needed several months to help me understand that. All I have control over is myself. For the new year, I also have a new clothing. I got sidetracked during the holidays and started working out like crazy. You know how that goes. I nearly went on a date with this cute young guy from Jumbo Juice, but I backtracked and didn't get the chance to seal the deal. Still, it was a great experience. I accept that I've exhausted all of my options. I have 5 nights a week to devote to myself and my baby. I have to move in a few months and really have no time for anything else. Either way, she will want or won't want to return. My therapist believes that things might change quickly and it's just a matter of time. Additionally, she still hasn't submitted the answer documents. However, I must admit that I wish I had acted on some of the earlier advice I received since I believe it had the greatest impact. Nevertheless, I tried my best to attend to her emotional needs prior to all of this, particularly when I believed that they had split up. I demonstrated to her that I had regained the qualities that had first won her over, as well as identifying the primary problems we were facing. There's no finer setup for the return, or it could be an even better arrangement for another woman. Every time she ended things with him, her family and I did everything in our power to encourage her and aid in her recovery. She knew that if she was apart from him, maybe the fog would lift entirely. She was also competent at it and would desire to return to the marriage. He dropped by after she broke up with him a few weeks after she moved out. Since I'm not the type of man that easily gets away with things, she claimed to have done it for her son after her birthday. She was aware that there was no future on our anniversary, and then there was the split with the cell number change following Thanksgiving. She always enticed me to return. Every time, I wished that she would recover. Every time she had discussed a potential future, she accomplished just enough each time to persuade us that it was finished. and he would entice her back in each time, or she would decide not to part with him. Every time, I wished to think she was a kind person. Every time I was in error, she would claim that she knew in her heart what was right, but her heart continued to pull her toward him. It seems that she was intent on driving the car till the wheels came off, and every time, I would wait there. After New Year's, I expressed my frustration with being uneasy, whether or not they were wed, and she would bring up the past every time we fought. If you had believed that we would reconcile, this modifies it now. The number of times I heard that is inexplicable. She hasn't even submitted her answer documents yet, as I mentioned, and not in a state of flux. I consider myself to be a free agent. The highest bidder gets me. In the new year, I have a lot on my plate, considering returning to school as well. The connection is therefore the least of my concerns. I am unable to work on it alone. Yes, as I've previously stated, I was duped, in the same way that many have been, since everyone wants to believe. My wife isn't a unique tiny snowflake, that's the only thing I think now. She was exactly like everyone else. But here's the deal. With the exception of the last occasion, she essentially ended things with him on her own every time. It was her own doing. I didn't put her in danger. I did not support her. Don't injure him if he's in your life. That was all I had to say to her at the moment. I'm not. It was merely the final instance in which she took action to separate from him. But it's just like any other addiction, I've discovered. You've been used to the high and now require a greater one every time. Every time, she only went so far as to convince us that it was finished. Gave a lengthy list of all the problems that he and his family had. Things he'd expressed. She mentioned that she had considered becoming friends with him the last time. She's been advised to quit cold turkey even by her therapist. We've only been willing to assist her in getting better. Surprisingly, she has multiple cousins who have completed rehab, and what they all say is the same. She must reach her lowest point. They are able to discern her attempts to escape and end the pattern. They have been there previously, but they were intoxicated. I've been attempting to introduce those repercussions for the past 2 weeks. In his own way, so has our son. We assumed she took a 3-month leave of absence to get away and recuperate as well. It was all lies to us. She also developed a strong bond with our son at the same time. But in the last month, everything has vanished. We've grown so much closer, and he's a clever little 4-year-old. She feels as though he has selected me, and she is devastated by this realization. She has made unsuccessful attempts to spend the night with him and me. She's simply stopped being there and has made futile attempts to get me to come over and mend things. In addition, my son is turning away from her. I kind of hope they both get moved. Heck, I kind of wish Shed's employment was terminated. She would accuse me, but the fact is known by all. This is the only reason to get in touch with HR once more. I'm not sure if she hasn't gotten in touch with HR on his behalf, or at the very least, asked whether he should be moved, or at least informed them that she doesn't want to be the one to get him fired or transferred. They are also aware of our separation. How can I accomplish that on her behalf? I would rather not enter bluffing. Since they are aware of the new number, I assume they are simply waiting on her to file one more complaint. It's possible that they are alerting him to leave her alone. I only mentioned to them that he is causing her trouble at home. When I called the landline, the representative informed me that they were powerless to address issues off-site. Following the other piece of advice, I told her straight out at this point, I'm not your friend and I'll do anything for your boy, but you've had your chance. It was designed to be as simple as possible. Note that by easy I mean that I've made progress in mending myself. She would still need to put in a lot of work. I've reduced everything to the essentials and told her that she's had her chance. In addition, my therapist advised me to always present myself in the best possible light and to anticipate her angry outburst, but to accept nothing less than complete surrender. The key will be whether or not there is genuine regret, but to be honest, I'm not really searching for that right now. It's nice if she returns, but it's time to make plans, even if they are only informal. Well, I was visiting my kid at her residence a few days later. She called me on the way home from her treatment, and after I hung up, she asked me to look up her caller ID. Indeed, he has given her multiple calls within the past week. She acknowledged speaking with him when I confronted her. I told her, quite much, to duck herself. HR was in her corner. She only needed to say something to get rid of him. He calls from his cell phone, though, so he has records and can refute anything she says. He has rendered himself unbeatable. She will so have to cope. She even had the gall to tell me that working there with him will not be a problem for her after she's finished. She admitted to me that she no longer loves him. She is aware that her 2 most recent sessions have been excellent and that they will soon come to an end. I chuckled since she should have ended it sooner if she realized it wouldn't work out. Of course, with brain chemistry and everything, I know it's not that simple. Nevertheless, let me just add that I spoke with the mediator today and have an apartment to begin moving the process along. I'll keep going, and she'll get what she wants. She was obviously upset when I told her. She threatened to get an attorney and sue me for everything. It is ironic considering that decisions have been made for months. She questioned why a mediator was necessary, that it is only there during a conflict, that we ought not require one. It's a phase in the separation process, I reminded her. She continued by saying that she probably would have stopped it sooner if I hadn't kicked her out, and once more questioned the necessity of a mediator. She seemed to want to stay away from it. I told her that I didn't live in the same universe as him. She had never before spoken of reconciliation. As long as they collaborated, I informed her, reconciliation is out of the question as long as he is involved in her life in any way. That I have the right to find a partner who shares my interests. I'm sick of returning home to a vacant house. I wanted everything to be reconciled as quickly as possible. By providing her with the means, I made an effort to remove him from the situation. She is now without options. She begged for another chance and had to transfer him or get him transferred. It's depressing, and this Valentine's Day will be awful. Well, it's not my fault. After a month, then occupied. See you later. She called off the mediation. Her justification: she desired representation of her own, which she still lacks as of right now, and hasn't finished filing yet. She seems to be repeating herself in everything that she says to me. How her feelings are shifting as she sees him more and more. I have been gradually making more and more space, blah blah blah. I make an effort not to visit her home on her days or too early to pick up my son. She's made multiple attempts to stay the night, but I've turned her down. Many small adjustments that she could or might not be noticing. In addition, I've made contact with a realtor to sell the house. Since she currently lives in our hometown and I can't afford it on my own, I will, quite bluntly, be moving back there to send our child to school. I've also started looking for an apartment. She says she wants to assist me with packing, moving, and other things. Although the properties she sent me fit the description of what I'm looking for, a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom home, they were still a few $100s beyond my budget. If I lived with someone, no problem, but alone, a little cramped. Even though I'm sad, I'm also kind of excited to move into a man's apartment since her lease is about to expire. Furthermore, my mother-in-law informed me that she is depleting her savings. In addition, he persists in pressuring her to move in with him close to his mother, who takes care of his clothes, cooks, and cleans. However, she detests his current residence and is unwilling to move in because she is aware of the consequences for both her and our son. Thus, make what sense you will from that. Weeds are growing up through the grass on the other side. We have a lovely shade tree here, and we might soon see some lovely flowers. I don't think I'm capable of handling starting a new relationship right now. Anything else, though, would be great. I wouldn't really trust her, though. However, that now applies to all women. But if she's ready to put in the effort when she wants to go back, our son and our shared past will work in her favor. However, her coworkers and my spies inform me that life isn't all sunshine and puppies. He's started to cling to her and become needy. He is pushing, yes, but he has also reportedly been pushing back. She knows the affair has something to do with the fact that she was moved from the department she loved working into another one that she is unsure. Their relationship is not going to last, in my opinion. My therapist has also mentioned this, along with all the supporting data. I just remembered one more thing. I was informed about this condition B has named epididymitis by his soon-to-be ex. It's odd that she was unaware that he had it. He was not pleased when she confronted him. Not to mention that the source was singular. He texted his ex in the end, and she passed the message to me. It said not to discuss my medical history with me and to please drop off children at the appointed hour. I worry about my case of epididymitis, even though it's not real. My spouse became aware of that text. The worst part is that he admitted to her that he had reprimanded his ex in correcting her, that he managed it. In actuality, their only means of communication was via text. She thus confronted him about the text, the falsehood, and the information sharing. You sharing the text with me, the ex-spouse received a second text. What's the purpose? A month ago, he was attempting to get close to his ex, but now he's turned incredibly cold toward her. I know it's all in the details, but for now, I'm inside that guy's mind. And that is a pleasant feeling. It seems like he's had a hard time confining her in a cage. I gather he was accustomed to peaceful altercations with his former partner. When it reached a certain point, she would just turn away. My spouse is the complete opposite. She's screaming, swearing, and acting like a spitfire. The way I used to handle her, he can't. A few months back, following one of her lambastings, I received a voicemail he had left. He really did sound like a fussy little bee. He was caving in and attempting various forms of passive-aggressive persuasion. Very flimsy thing. Or, in my wife's words, he behaves like a child. So dissimilar from who I was. After our baby was born, I might become a bit beta, but I was never that horrible. My comment: the last chapter of Opus's story will conclude early tomorrow morning. You believe Opus has moved on at last? Or does he continue to wait for her? We'll find out in the epilogue.